On the next episode of Painting and Travel, fly with Sarah during the Albuquerque, New Mexico Hot Air Balloon Festival. Then watch Roger use acrylics to paint a 16 by 20 inch splash and dash hot air balloon scene.
Well, as you can tell, this mural and this building no longer exist. But way back in 1978, I was asked to create a mural for this building by the owner of the hotel. And I'd been a hot air balloonist for many years and logged over 700 flights. So ballooning was a passion of mine. I had done several other murals around the Clearwater area at that time, one being this large abstract mural and a few other smaller ones. I used an electric scaffold to get up and down on this wall, and I had one helper with me. It took us one full day to lay it out in charcoal, and it took 4 days to do the actual painting. And at the very top there, I had signed my name on the 10th story. And I signed that by having somebody hold my feet, and I hung over upside down and painted my name.
Do you remember this building going up?
Yes, we were here when they built the spyglass, and we've used that hot air balloon as directions for the last 20 years that I know of, and I'm sure they used it before that. But how really beautiful it came out. I love it, and I'm going to miss it. So that was one of the uniquenesses of Clearwater Beach.
Back in the 70s, I would often bring my hot air balloon over to the beach here and launch it, sometimes from the beach itself, and we'd fly inland. Now, hot air balloons are very large. A real hot air balloon is about 7 stories tall. So what I have on this mural is actually smaller than a real hot air balloon. Well, this mural is gone now, but it's been a landmark here for so many decades, and I've always enjoyed seeing it as I come across the causeway to beautiful Clearwater Beach. Florida, like most of the country, is being developed all the time. As the population grows, things just change. So this building is being replaced by something much larger. Well, here in the studio, I'm going to do a 16 by 20 inch painting of this hot air balloon. This is on a masonite board that I've toned with a green color. And on my palette, I have titanium white, ultramarine blue, cerulean blue, phthalo blue, cadmium yellow, Indian yellow, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, and some earth colors here, yellow ochre, raw sienna, burnt umber, and a chromium oxide green. Probably more colors than I need on my palette. But today I am using the phthalo blue, and I'll show you why down here. This will be very dark blue down in this area. What I'm going to do is just put in this water and paint right over my drawing. But this paint, these acrylics are fairly thin at this point, so I'll still be able to see my drawing. Now I'll add some white to that, and I'll start lightening this whole area here. Now I have to work very quickly with this because these acrylics dry very fast, especially on a masonite board, much more so than canvas. The masonite just seems to absorb the paint quicker than the canvas. Just going back and forth with this to smooth it out. I'm using a very light touch just to get this very, very smooth down here, because this was a very calm day when we were flying. That's not my balloon, by the way. That's a friend's balloon. I took this photograph from my balloon. Okay, I'll just continue with this lighter color, and I'm going to add some yellow ochre at this point and warm this area. It's a little dark down here at the bottom, so I'm going to try and lighten that some. I'm keeping my paints quite wet while I do this, dip into some water there. I can feel this start to tack up. It's going to start to drag any minute here. So now I think I'll move up to the sky. I'm going to let this dry for a while before I work on that again. And this is a fairly warm sky. Okay, and I'll just smooth this the same way I did the water down here. And let me put enough paint on there so it covers well. And I don't want to touch this yet, it's still wet, so I don't want to disturb that at all. But I can start to put in some of the trees up in this area. Now these trees, of course, are in the background. I want to keep those sort of a bluish color to keep an atmospheric look to this painting. I want to keep this top edge right here very soft. One way to do that is to wipe the brush off, sort of have a dry brush, and then give that a soft touch to make those trees. Now there's, of course, reflection of these trees in the water. So I'll take that same green and I'll just drag that down into the water here. Just putting this reflection on with a dry brush. That means I just don't have very much paint on the brush. All right, I'll put down the 1-inch brush and I'll pick up a smaller brush and start laying in some of the colors here on the hot air balloon. Maybe I'll start with this part of the balloon. This is called the skirt of the balloon. And I'll use alizarin crimson. Now alizarin crimson is a transparent color, so I'll probably have to give this several coats here. Skirt attaches to the main part of the balloon up here. And there's a nice reflected light right here. It's coming in from the sun from the other side of the balloon. Makes a nice pattern. Well, I have the alizarin crimson out. I think I'll just put in the panels up here. These are called gores. Each panel is called a gore. This is really the quickest part of any painting, is the blocking in process. But it's very important to block in all these areas first before any detail is begun. While I'm up in this area, I might as well fill in the rest of these panels here. And these are white panels, but I don't want to paint them just strictly white. I need to gray those some, so I'll take my ultramarine blue and burnt umber. A few large panels in here. There we go. And smooth that just by a light touch once again. It's really important to have a good brush while doing this. This brush has a nice chisel edge on it, so I can cut these lines fairly accurately without much effort. I'll pick up some pure white, because over on this side, this is where the sunlight is coming from, the morning sun. Lighten this panel a little bit. All right, we'll go back to the reds again and down by the skirt. And I'll take my cadmium red. And this is where the light from that shadow is being cast from the other side of the balloon. Something about that little shadow that's very, very nice. Makes that nice pattern in there. And then right over here gets very light. The color is basically washed out. So just use primarily white on that with just a touch of red. And this is the very edge of that skirt. These tend to wrinkle just a little bit, so that's what's giving me these lines in here. And I'll take my brush, I'll wipe the paint off it so I have a dry brush. And in the few seconds this is still wet, I'll blend that together there, give that a soft edge. Now, as I said, the alizarin crimson is a transparent color, so it just doesn't cover very well. So I'm going to put a second coat of alizarin crimson on this skirt here. If I were to add white with that, it would, of course, become opaque, but then I would lose the dark color. So I'll stay with the pure alizarin crimson here. So many of these balloons are just so brilliant with color. They're just lovely to look at. A lot of fun to fly. Now this is pretty dry right now, but I'm going to wait a little bit longer. So I'm touching where the hot air balloon basket is. I don't want to touch over in this area because if this were wet, I'd really mess up this area of paint. So while I'm waiting for that to dry just a little bit more, well, using this gray color one more time, ultramarine blue and burnt umber, I'll put the base of this skirt on here. Get my ruler. This will steady my hand. And this base goes right around the bottom of the skirt. And I'll take my pure white, and on this side, just put an accent of highlight there. With a very dark color of burnt umber and ultramarine blue, we'll put in a little more detail up here in the balloon. I'm using my ruler here, straight edge, to put my fingers right on the edge here to get this nice straight line that comes right down here. My paint is quite thin, so it flows off this brush easily as I bring it down. And another one over here.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Merci.
Bienvenue. What a pleasure. What I like about New Mexico is all these people who speak French, Spanish, really high culture level. That's pleasant. What a nice morning. Wow.
Michelle said we might touch down on the river, but we'll see what happens here. And there's one of the very large gondolas there, the basket. Get up. No. Oh, gosh, that looks very dramatic there with the flame and the water. Yep, they're really dipping.
Yeah, they got wet feet.
Another lovely classic look.
I think we're going to take off. Hop in.
Michelle,
yes.
Some days, not very many, but your mind tells you a little something and it says you'll never have a more special moment than this in a balloon, and I'm getting that message right now.
Oh, great.
I don't think it could be any more spectacular than it is today.
Well, that's fantastic. That's pleasing to hear. Thank you.
Thanks for a lovely experience. It's very special, and I have little chills. pilot, Michelle, is looking for a good landing spot for us, and that can be tricky because there are power lines, and you have to be very careful where you go down. And also, there's no steering. If you've never been in a hot air balloon, you might think, oh, you can lean a little this way, like with a horse, or lean a little to the left and make it go to the left, but you really can't. All you can steer with, in a sense, is your knowledge and feeling of the wind, and with your heater, heating up the air, going up or down. We'll land just beyond the tree. The trees will be a little bit of a windbreak for us, hopefully, so when we get just beyond them, we can go down and then make a smooth landing. Oh yes, there's a dirt road down here, and I think that's what Michelle's aiming for here.
Okay. We're landing here.
Okay, bend my knees.
Hold on.
Brace for landing.
Hold on.
We're holding.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay, stay in.
All right.
We have no choice, we have to stop the flight.
Okay.
Let me give you a hand.
All right. Just a second, Michelle.
Okay.
I gotta get these long legs out here first. All right.
Oh, look how fast the winds are picking up.
Yeah, I think you got us down just in
I
time.
would have loved to land about 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before, but...
My hero. Thanks,
was a nice
Michelle.
flight.
Yeah, well, the winds really picked up just as you were thinking we better
When
land.
the sun came out and everything, I knew they were picking up, and it's 8:24. So we had a very good flight, an hour, 25 minutes.
Most beautiful flight I've ever had.
Oh, thank you. 3 times.
Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Well, I think this is finally dry enough for me to put in that balloon basket. And I think I'll take my pencil again. I can just barely see my pencil lines, but I have just enough there where I think I can reconstruct this. Let me take my box here. This is I have a razor blade in here. I'm going to scrape off some of this paint. That'll give a little more palette space to work with. Well, these balloon baskets are made of wicker because it's a strong material, and when a balloon is being landed, it's often a hard landing, and the wicker tends to give. It just won't break. It'll sort of give. And so it's pretty much the ideal material for a hot air balloon basket. Now on the right side of the balloon basket, it's much lighter. It's where the sun is hitting it. Take some yellow ochre, some white. And I'll just lay in that shape there, just a big cube, basically. It's sort of rounded here on the corners. So I'll just blend that a little bit to give it a rounded look. It's fun to land a balloon on the water like this. Sometimes if you're not careful, you can land pretty hard and you get the basket full of water. Now right down here we have the reflection, and generally speaking, light objects reflect darker in the water, and dark objects reflect lighter in the water. So this light object down here, and I can see that clearly on my reference photograph, I'm going to put up some blue in with that as well. Now I can spray my board. Since this is dry, I can spray my board, and as I put these reflections in, I can soften the edge of these reflections, and spraying the board helps to do that. I'll wipe my brush off, dry the brush off, and then just take my brush and move it from side to side, wipe it off again. It'll give that soft look. There are 3 people in this basket. They're pretty much in silhouette. There's one here. And I'll just sort of place these in with a sort of a large stroke of the brush. Another one back here. I believe this is the pilot. And I'll just indicate again by just a stroke or two, just sort of to get the profile of these people. I'll continue to move down the page here, and this will be the reflection of the hot air balloon from underneath. I'll take my alizarin crimson, mix it with some ultramarine blue. This is very dark down here, this reflection. I'll spray this slightly, and then I'll just soften these edges, and that will give me a little bit more water look there. See, I'm just picking up that red and exposing the blue water underneath there, the blue paint underneath. Do the same here. I have to wipe the brush off every time. What I'm doing is I'm just picking up the paint I just put on there. Now I'll be using a smaller pointed brush, and we'll start with some of the details. Everything has been blocked in right now, so now we can start putting on the finishing touches. Here we have the edge of the basket. We're kind of looking down into the basket just slightly. And there's some highlights right on this side. I'll lighten that. And I'll work on the people in the basket. Here looks like a lady with a kind of a white shirt on. And she's holding on for dear life here. I don't think I'm going to get too very detailed with these people here. Just going to suggest them. I'm going to leave this alone for a few moments. I'm going to go back up to the background here. I want to add a little more interest back here. So I'll take some of the blue, but I'll spray this first. And just add more contrast in this area. It's just some trees back here. I think I can put in a few docks, maybe a little boat or something, just to show that there's some growth back here. I'm going to put a larger tree over on this side, and it is in the photograph, but one thing I've found is helpful in a painting is to put something on one side or another, maybe both sides, to keep the eye from just falling off the edge of the board. When I put something up here, something large up here, the eye sort of goes here and it almost makes like a stop sign. So, so the viewer can stop, go back into the painting. So I'll put a bit of a larger tree right here. And I'm just using the edge of my brush, scumbling this around. Over here we do the same thing. And I'll add some reflections down here. I'm dragging these reflections down vertically. And then, once again, I take my brush, wipe it off, be sure it's very dry, and I'll pick up some of that paint, just drag that back and forth to pick up what looks like a little ripple in the water. This has to be done fairly quickly before the paint dries. All right, now let's put a little bit of a beach over there. Don't see it in my reference photograph, but mix up some light color and just put a hint of a little shoreline there. That will nicely indicate the difference between the trees and the reflection. That could be a little bit of a building or whatever, just some kind of a structure back there. And then take this same color I've got here on the brush and put it right underneath, like that. And again, I'll wipe off that brush and I'll just soften those edges right there. I think that's all I need for the background. Let's go back up here to the skirt. And right in here, I need to add a little more detail. And with some more pure white, this is where these attach here to the hot air balloons. Now I'll add some more detail to the basket. Just try and add kind of a wicker look here. With some dark color again, I'll add these stanchions to the basket. These are uprights that hold the burner in place and attach to the hot air balloon. And I want to make this basket lighter. So I'll just take a wash here, thin wash, put that on, wipe my brush off, and just with a dry brush, blend these colors into the dry color. Well, when this basket does hit the water, it does make some ripples here. So I'll add a few of those. I'll take my cerulean blue and white and just put a few circles around this hot air balloon basket. If it was windy, this would really be moving along, but if on a calm day, it could just sit down and really not make too much of a wake. And just add a little bit of a trail in the direction this balloon might be heading. So we'll just stream it out this way so that balloon looks like it's going in that direction. I've done a lot of hot air balloon paintings in the past, and this was the first book I had published called The Art of Hot Air Ballooning. And in it, it had hundreds and hundreds of paintings of hot air balloons. So it's been a familiar subject for quite some time. This is a big area here that needs a little bit of attention. I'll spray that board, get that a little damp, and I'll just add a little bit of streaking back there. It just breaks up that large area of solid color. The only reason I can do this now is because this is totally dry, this background. Well, I think that will finish this painting, and I really enjoyed revisiting the sport of hot air ballooning through this painting.
For more information about painting and travel with Roger and Sarah Bansemer, visit paintingandtravel.com.